Good morning, virtual book clubbers. How are you guys this morning? It's pretty early here. The sun hasn't risen yet. Just been doing my morning meditation and thought I would pop on and do today's reading. We continue to read from Simple Abundance, and we are on the January 11th entry. It says, "Is it recession or depression? No pessimist ever discovered the secrets of the stars or sailed to an uncharted land or opened a new heaven to the human spirit." Written by Helen Keller. "It's a recession when your neighbor loses his job," Harry Truman observed, "and it's a depression when you lose your own." As downturns in the economy disturb more and more households, we begin to question seriously the financial yardstick by which we have been measuring our personal net worth and therefore our happiness. Perhaps the recession has personally affected you and yours. It's hard to believe there's anybody that it hasn't touched, at least indirectly. Millions of women are scaling down their expectation of what constitutes the good life, redefining their values, reordering their priorities, and accepting the challenge to make virtue out of necessity. It's very easy to surrender to an emotional depression when a financial one occurs. It's easy to be pessimistic about tomorrow when today seems so bleak. It's time we put thoughts of lack behind us. It's time for us to discover the secret of the stars, to sail to an uncharted land, to open up a new heaven where our spirits can soar. But first, we'll have to make changes. And lasting changes do not happen overnight. Lasting change happens in increments, a day, an hour, a minute, a heartbeat at a time. And the change I'm encouraging you to make with me is fundamental. Take a deep breath. We're going to learn to become optimists. Now be reassured, optimism, like the happiness habit, can be learned. Start today with a little experiment. Smile at everyone you meet. Today, expect that something good is going to happen to you no matter what occurred yesterday. Realize the past no longer holds you captive. It can only continue to hurt you if you hold on to it. Let the past go. A simply abundant world awaits. It's funny because this book, like I said earlier, this book I think was written in 1995. And so obviously we know right now it's 2021 and a lot of people have been financially impacted by the COVID pandemic. So many of us have had to really reprioritize our life and really find ways to bring joy into our life in this time of not only financial insecurity, but health insecurity, food insecurity, being isolated. I mean, we're being hit with all of these things at one time. So it's, again, we've been given an opportunity here. If we look at it as an opportunity to reprioritize our life and to look at what truly brings us joy. What I like about what she says in the book is realize that the past no longer holds you captive. I think for a lot of people, when it comes to money, this is a generational thing. You know, were your parents people who spoke in the language of lack and scarcity? Did they always struggle financially? I think a lot of times, again, we learned the money habit from our parents and they learned it from their parents. And until someone is willing to get off the crazy merry-go-round and say, no, that's not my reality. My reality is full of abundance. You're never going to change anything when it comes to your financial situation. I know for me, when I always felt like there was this financial ceiling I couldn't get past. You know, I can only be so successful. I couldn't go past that. And I realized one day, in a very simple moment, my little guy had asked if we could go out to eat. And without even thinking, I instantaneously said to him, no, I'm sorry, we can't go out to eat today. I'm broke. And as soon as I said that, I really got this clarity about that sentence. I've been using that phrase forever. A phrase that I adopted from my parents. A phrase I heard many times as a child. And it really got me thinking. I really, as a child, in my perspective, we lived a pretty abundant life. We owned our own home. We had a pool. Our parents, you know, we really didn't want for much of anything. But in their reality, in their thought processes, they were broke. They had nothing. And I realized I continue to carry that on, and I am unconsciously passing this on to my child. And I thought in that moment, I'm literally telling myself that I am broken, that I cannot have. I am reinstilling that thought process every time I repeat that statement. And that really was a big shift for me. And I started to realize that no, I'm not broken, and there is truly massive amounts of abundance, not only in my life, but in the world for me to receive. Don't get me wrong. There are days or times when, you know, there's some kind of financial thing going on and I get anxious about it. But before in my life, it would be days, months, weeks of being anxious and depressed. Now, I give myself a little time, a few minutes, maybe an hour to really feel that emotion and then say, okay, now it's time to get to work. You know, that's not our reality. Let's kick out of that. There's a really great line in the movie The Lorax. In that movie, Ted, he is a young man who is absolutely in love with the girl next door. And her birthday's coming up, and he wants to get her something special, something no one else would ever get her. And one day they're chatting, and in passing conversation, she just was dreaming about seeing a tree. Because you see, in their world, there are no trees. Trees had been deforested generations ago, and no one has seen a tree in so many years. And all she wanted to do was to see a tree. So Ted gets this idea, I'm gonna get her a tree. If I get her a tree, she is totally gonna love me for this forever. But again, in his reality, there are no trees. Well, he happened to be telling his grandmother about this, and she's like, well, there is this guy, his name is the Onceler. He's like a hermit, and he lives out in the middle of nowhere. If anybody knows what happened to the trees and where you might be able to find the tree, it's him. So Ted goes out on this trek, this journey, travels many miles to meet this Onceler. And the Onceler's like, there's no trees. That's all there is to it. And Ted's like, Ted's like, no, he doesn't accept that as his reality. And the Onceler says to him, I'm so glad you're not deterred by things like reality. He's telling Ted, in your reality, there's no trees, but you believe that there will be a tree. And it's true. He did find a tree. He was able to get a tree for the girl next door. So we really have to be like Ted. We have to accept that what we see before us is not necessarily our reality. We get to create that reality. We get to say that we have an abundant life. The more we believe we have abundance, the more abundance shows up for us in our life. And that has been demonstrated to me time and time and time again. We have to change our focus and our thinking from, oh my God, how am I going to do this, to, oh my God, we're going to do this. You know, it's a slight change, but it's an amazing shift in your reality that is going to bring so much more abundance in your life. If you truly believe that this is going to happen, you may not see the way out of it at that very moment, but it will come. That has been proven to me time and time and time again. I'll give you a great example. When my dad was dying, we didn't have the money. It was it just came out of nowhere that, hey, Dad's dying and you need to get here right away. Okay. I have no money to do that, but we're going to figure it out. It's just going to come from somewhere. And in less than 24 hours, I had more than enough money to fly myself, my husband, and my son out to New York, and we stayed there for 3 weeks. We had enough money for all of that, plus money to come back and have a buffer, and it just worked out. And I was lucky enough that I was able to work virtually at the time, so I was still able to collect a paycheck. It just worked perfectly. But if I wanted to believe that there was no way that I could get to New York, then my life would be very different right now. Because you see, on that trip to New York is where we were given the gift of owning a home. So being that I had faith and my husband had faith that the money was going to come for us to be able to do this, to come to New York, to be here for my dad, to be here, and it really was a great trip. Yes, my dad had passed away, but there was a lot of emotional cleanup that happened, a lot of energetic cleanup that happened, a lot of relationships with people that I had here in New York that were mended, deep soul conversations with everyone that I talked to, my husband and I having these amazing deep conversations that I will cherish forever. And then the gift of being presented with, hey, you get the opportunity to own your own home, something that we had been asking for. So how has your change in perspective, if you live or think about your life as abundant, what miracles have shown up in your life because you believe them to be coming to you? You believed in abundance. I'd love to hear some of your stories about how abundance has shown up in your life in unexpected ways. Have a great day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.